Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 6 o'clock here in the morning, Friday morning, July the 22nd. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. And we're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. It did pop the link into the chat room to what we're talking about. We've been looking at Robert Burney's web pages for a couple months now, and at least a couple months. And he's got some great information on there. Robert Burney is he's a codependence therapist. He's a grief counselor, and he's an author. He's written a book called Codependence: The Dance of Wounded Souls, which I haven't read yet, but he's got a lot of excerpts from his book here on his web pages. And his website is www.joy2meandyou. That's joy to the number 2 MEU.com. And if you look at the site index, you can see he's got all kinds of stuff there. We're looking at, like, what I really wanted to look at from these web pages was the inner child work and things dealing with the inner child, healing and whatnot. But there is a lot of information on that website, and we probably won't go through the whole thing. And I hope everybody will go check out his website. It's great information. I found it a lot of it very useful. Some of it is a little bit over my head. He's a spiritual teacher as well, and but some of it does make real good sense to me, and I've learned a lot, and it's good information. So I hope everybody will check it out. So thanks everybody for being here. I appreciate it. I'm not a counselor or a therapist, and I'm just a private citizen paying to do my shows here on Blog Talk Radio. And I wanted to be one more voice speaking out against abuse. I started these shows November 2009, and I saw some other good shows on here and awesome people really trying to make a difference with using their voice. And I thought, I wouldn't mind doing that. So I started this November 2009, and really had no idea, how long I'd be doing these shows and who would be listening. So I appreciate everybody who's tuning into my shows, taking the time to listen to what I have to say. As you can tell, I'm pretty disgruntled about child abuse. It's affected my life, and it's affected my life and almost killed me. And for me, like, I have to speak out against this stuff. I couldn't stay silent anymore, and I couldn't just sit there and let what happened to me stay within me. It was very important for me to get out what I needed to get out, which was the truth of what happened to me as a child. And I thought, well, I'll just be one more voice out here speaking out against abuse. And so I started doing these shows, and then I realized that I was obviously working on my healing journey, and I thought, well, while I'm looking at the information, I could be doing a show to help other survivors to hold on and to keep looking for the help and that hope, whatever works for them, wherever they can find it, right? So, I'm not a counselor or a therapist. You have to listen at your own discretion. I'm just a private citizen. My shows are pretty graphic, and I do just tell it like it is. I don't sugarcoat it, minimize it, put a pretty box on it, and put a ribbon and a bow on it. Like, I'm just telling it exactly like it is. It's graphic, and it's disturbing, and that's what abuse is. Abuse is graphic, it's disturbing, it's horrible, it kills children. If it doesn't kill them, it'll maim them for life. If it doesn't maim them physically, it'll maim them, it'll destroy them emotionally, psychologically, and it's hard to come back from that. So that's why I thought, I just want to be one more voice of encouragement for people out there to, because I started my healing journey 4 years ago, and I'm, really making progress, and I just wanted to be one more voice out here. So you have to listen to all of my shows at your own discretion, right? Because I'm talking about abuse, and it's a very, very sensitive subject. So if it makes you uncomfortable, ultimately it is your discretion. You have to make the right choice for yourself, either to listen or not. And, you make the right decision, and it is your discretion. Young people under the age of 18, I just ask that you have permission to listen to my shows, because I have no idea how young the people are who are listening to my shows. So if you're under the age of 18, I just ask that you have permission from an adult, a parent, or a caregiver, somebody who's an adult who can listen to the show with you and really help you make that decision whether you should be listening age appropriately, right? So we're going to get right into this morning, and this is looking at Robert Burney's inner child work, and he's got a page here called Sharing Experience, Strength, and Hope, My Recovery Process, and this is Robert Burney talking. Robert Burney's a survivor, so he goes through and talks about his own process as well. And so I'm just going to read from that page. He's got a bunch of excerpts from his book, The Codependence: The Dance of Wounded Souls. And so, right, these little passages I'm reading here, these are the actual excerpts from his book. And he says, in learning how to achieve some emotional balance in our lives, it is necessary to be able to look at ourselves, our own inner process, and the life dynamic itself from different perspectives. It is this looking at different levels that is the process of processing. Processing is a matter of looking at, filtering, discerning, getting clear about what is happening at any given moment in our relationship with life, with ourselves, with everything that is stimulating us. And he says here, a very important part of my process of finding some balance in my life, of learning how to see myself and how I relate to others and life more clearly, was to get clear that everything in my process relates back to me and my growth process. I had to get past my codependent belief that I was doing something for you or you were doing something to me. Taking action is one of the most valuable tools in the recovery process and is very much connected to the principle of taking responsibility. It is very important to become proactive in our own healing process, and that means that we need to align our will and our willpower with healing instead of the disease. Right? And these are just excerpts from his book, and actually I really agree with all of it. This is just where I've been for the last 4 years, is taking a look at what happened to me and taking a look as a third-party person, looking at what was going on in my parents' lives, what was going on in their minds when what was happening to them, what happened to them as children, to set up this dysfunctional, abusive environment that we grew up in, and the circumstances that surrounded it. And I took a look at, the situation with my siblings, and instead of just looking at me as, I'm the victim and I'm going to look at it this way, which is what I had been doing really, throughout my life. I actually spent more time the last 4 years taking a look at what the situation really was all around, and almost from a third-party perspective, which really did help, because it gave me, it sort of helped to clarify some things and put things really where they really were, so that I could actually see what was actually happening, and sort of take a look at why this stuff happened. Because I was thinking, this is what happened to me as a child was just crazy, and people in my life were crazy. And I thought, I really want to take a look at the whole thing and get a good, clear picture. And then I started to work on myself after that. So, he says, so it's important that we become proactive in our healing process. And I've seen this on other websites, that we really have to be in charge of our healing process. There was one website, I think it was the Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, the ASCA support.org, www.ascasupport.org. They have a Survivor to Thriver workbook on there. It's a Survivor to Thriver manual, and it's a self-help workbook. You can do it with a group or you can do it on your own, but they usually don't suggest you do it on your own unless you actually read the Safety First portion of it, because the Safety First portion is 35 pages long, just to make sure you can actually do the workbook. But I've actually looked at the workbook. I printed it off. It's like 115 pages long, and really worth looking at. But the thing is, they were talking about that. They said, really, we have to be in charge of our healing journey. We have to know where we're going, what we want out of this healing journey. We have to be our own best advocate for getting help, and that means in any way, whether you're looking for mental health services or if you're looking for just general health services for physical ailments or whatever. We have to really be our own best advocate. We're the only ones that can do this for ourselves. So we have to be willing to take action and step up to the plate, and that's really kind of what I've done, and try to be proactive with getting with making progress, just steady progress on my healing journey, which is what I've been doing. And I noticed that over the last 4 years I've made quite a lot of progress, but it's been little piece, little bit by little bit, right? So, which is good. Not too much all at once. It's just sort of building a foundation for myself that is so much better than it was, So I feel like I'm much more able to handle life, you know what I mean? And so things are getting a lot better for me. It has taken 4 years to get to here, to where I'm at today, so it doesn't happen overnight. So he says, when I am taking care of business and owning my responsibility as co-creator of my life, at the same time I'm letting go of trying to control things over which I have no control. Then I can find a balanced place where I learn how to relax and enjoy life more today. So sometimes taking care of business means forcing myself to take action. This is Robert Burney talking. So we have to just be responsible for ourselves, and if we're not doing well, we have to get help, right? I mean, this is just it. 2 of my brothers just killed themselves, one day, and they had the opportunity to get help. They were in and out of prison. They had counseling services when they were in prison for drug counseling, and as well as their emotional problems and stuff like that, because they had anger management counseling. I mean, in prison, because I would talk to them briefly over the years, and they had opportunities for help, and they even had they didn't have much help from the family. Obviously, my family, right? I mean, everybody who listens to my show knows my family was completely screwed up. Nobody was helping anybody except for one of my older brothers, the oldest brother, who was doing quite well, married and everything. He tried to help them both, right? And he tried to help them, and he couldn't help them. And so, he sort of took on a bit of the guilt, when they killed themselves, because he sort of felt, while he did try everything he could to help my brothers and his brothers, right? And he, they were not open and receptive to getting help. They were just going to kill themselves, and that's all there was to it. So I in some way I do feel bad for my brother, because the one who's living, because he really did try to help them, but you can't take on that guilt. If people don't want to get help, it is clearly their responsibility as adults, and there isn't much you can do with somebody who refuses to get help. And so, I didn't want to go that route. It's kind of the route that I was going until the age of 41. I wasn't doing drugs or anything. I quit doing drugs at the age of 21. But the next 20 years, I continued to spiral downward as far as my emotional well-being was going, and I was able to hold jobs down, have relationships and everything else, but at the end of the day, I was sitting there wanting to kill myself. And so, things were not looking good, and the opportunity and the possibility for me to end my life in order to hurt myself was always there. And so, I decided 4 years ago, I said, that's it. I am not doing this anymore. This was set up for me by my parents. This was set up for me by my siblings, especially one of them. And, this is not what I need to do. I need to get help, and I need to not allow myself to be destroyed, like my two brothers did. So it is ultimately our responsibility, and I take all that responsibility on myself as far as getting help. It is my responsibility, and it is all of our responsibility. And I'm doing my stuff self-help because I just trust myself a little bit more than I do other people. So, but not everybody can do self-help. So I know there's got to be some good counselors and good therapists out there. And just like there's good parents out there. That's like saying every parent is bad. That's not true. And so that not every counselor and therapist is bad. I mean, I totally know that. I do trust myself a little bit more. So if I needed to get professional help, I told myself, I made a commitment that I would go and do it, because I refused to be destroyed by this. I almost would let myself be destroyed by the abuse that I suffered as a child. And now I'm like, no, not anymore, right? Like, I'm on my healing journey. So I like what Robert Burney says. It is our responsibility, and we do have to be our own best advocate and proactive in our healing journey. And so he says here, my recovery process and taking action. And this is Robert Burney talking. He says, in my March update, I was processing through an issue, and some people seemed to be a little confused about the update. And there were also inquiries in regard to my reference to forcing myself to take some action. So I started to write this new page about processing to try to explain the process of processing and taking action a little bit more. And what started out to be one article has evolved into 3 at least. So you see this continually writing, right? He says this one is going to be about my choice to share my process on these web pages, and about how I have learned that it is sometimes necessary to force myself to take action in my personal recovery process. So he says processing through my personal issues is something that I did in the newsletters from my original Joy to You and Me website on silcom.com. And he says you can find those links and whatnot on the Joy to Me and You site index, right? He's got all kinds of stuff there. I hope everybody will check it out. He's really written a lot. He's a prolific writer. He writes all the time, and he's got so much information there. That's why I say we're only covering a very small portion of what he's written, right? I mean, he's done some amazing work, and I hope everybody will go check it out. And he says, it's sometimes that I do in alignment with sharing my experience, strength, and hope. I believe it is something that I do in alignment with sharing my experience, strength, and hope. I believe it is very important for me to be willing to role model that it is okay to be human. I also know that it is helpful for people to have me discuss how I apply the principles of the 12-step spiritual program in my life in a concrete way instead of just abstract concepts. And so he says, on a miscellaneous topic, former online columns, I quote from one of those newsletters about the personal nature of my writing. Among the things I say in that quote are these paragraphs. He says, the thing that was the most damaging to us was the role modeling of the emotionally crippled adults we grew up around. The role modeling is what taught us to the dysfunctional definitions of who we were as emotional beings. It is vitally important, in my opinion, that we have some beings who are willing to role model what emotionally healthy behavior is, which includes being emotionally vulnerable at times. So that's very true, right? I mean, there's no such thing as, people who would walk around and say, oh, I've never ever been emotionally unwell and I'm just perfect, is just not true. You know what I mean? Everybody's had to deal with something in their life, because grief is normal. If somebody says, I've never had to grieve in my entire life, well, I think they're lying to themselves. Because it's actually, if somebody said, I've never been hurt in my entire life, they would be lying to themselves and everybody else. Because life throws curveballs at people. And people can get hurt over the silliest thing. Maybe the tooth fairy didn't leave you a quarter underneath the pillow one time, or maybe you didn't get this gift that you wanted from Santa Claus or something, or maybe somebody at school didn't like your report and so, made you feel kind of bad or something. I mean, these are things that, that cause children to feel down, and as adults we can look back and say, well, that was just silly stuff, but as children it very well could have hurt us. And so, there's just no such thing as a person escaping this planet without some type of grieving work or healing that needs to be done. So yeah, we are emotionally vulnerable at times, and we do need to learn how to handle stuff, and that's exactly what I'm doing, working on it. You know what I mean? Work in progress. Traditional therapy counseling in this society is set up as a one-on-one situation, and that is the therapist is set up as the expert who treats the poor, unfortunate patient. He says, I happen to agree with something that Ram Dass once said about this. If you meet a therapist who thinks you are the patient, run. That's funny. Well, I like that because I've actually seen and talked to some therapists and counselors out here, and I'm not going to give names, but the thing is these people, when they were talking to me, I told them, I said, yeah, they were telling me that my story was just horrific, and they were very happy that I was actually doing as well as I was, and a couple of them said stuff like that, and they were like, we're just glad that you're doing well, and you seem to be doing really well, and we're, as from a therapist or a counselor's perspective, and they were like, we're happy for you. And I've had a few people approach me, and I would say stuff like, yeah, it's pretty messed up, and they would say, hey, everybody, we all have had to live this life, right? So I mean, they would say stuff like, we're learning too, right? It's not like they're excluded; they're human beings too, and they understand what it's like. So that's the thing. It's that's why I think Robert Burney says that that one Ram Dass said, if you meet a therapist who thinks you're the patient, run. I like that. I am in process just as my clients are, just as we all are. This is what he says. There is no hierarchy as far as I'm concerned, just one wounded person, magnificent spiritual being, sharing what has worked for me with another wounded person, magnificent spiritual being. I am doing what I need to do for myself to heal myself. It doesn't have to do with anyone else. That it helps other people is just a bonus and an opportunity to settle karma. So I like that, this is kind of how I feel, I've thought about going into biblical counseling, and because that's just what I feel moved to do, you know what I mean. But the thing is I'm not a counselor, I'm not a therapist. But what I wanted to do on these shows was to show people that, someone like myself who can come from hell, and I know there's other people out here living this hell right now. These kids out here that are being abused and mistreated and neglected in every way, and just growing up in these horrific dysfunctional homes with no love, no care, and no future, feeling that their life is just worthless. I know so many kids right now would be in this position. I'm sitting here thinking, and I know so many survivors who have been in this position. I'm not the only one. That's why I say my story is not special. The only issue is I'm willing to talk about it, right? I'm willing to come on the air and, and for whoever wants to listen, talk about it and what it did to me and what it, and how I've had to work to try to get around it and try to get through it. Not around it. That's what I was doing before. I was skirting around it, but now, I'm actually working to heal. To experience it, to not let it destroy myself, right? And so it's hopefully, if it helps one person, then it's worth it, right? If it helps one person, then it's worth it. If it helps me, then it's worth it. And so that's exactly what it is. It has helped me a lot. So that's why, these shows, that's why I was saying I'm not a counselor, I'm not a therapist, but if I can just be a voice of encouragement for people, then that makes this all worthwhile. You know what I mean? Because it is helping me to do this work. So I'm hoping that it will help encourage other people, right? So that's why I like what Robert Burney said there. And he says, once I started my Joy to You and Me journal, things shifted somewhat. He says, I started doing most of the online processing about more personal issues in that journal rather than in my update announcements. I'd gotten feedback from several people that thought that my online processing was too intimate. I had a good chuckle about that because the level of intimacy which I was processing at in both my old newsletters and in my recent online personal journal was and is not that deep a level. Not nearly the depth I process with someone in person who is safe. Safe meaning someone who knows how to be present with me and supportive, who will not judge me or try to fix me. Unfortunately, at that level, I am at a rare and precious commodity. And the people who thought it was too intimate were making a statement about themselves and their own level of emotional intimacy that really had very little to do with me. And isn't that the truth? And that's why I say everybody has to listen to my shows at their own discretion. You know what I mean? Because you may not be able to be where I'm, to listen to something like this, or anything like this, right? I mean, not just my show. I mean, I'm talking anybody who's talking about these types of issues, because I'm willing to be emotionally honest, and I'm willing to be honest about what happened to me, and I'm willing to take a look at it. And sometimes that hurts, and it hurts a lot of people. That's why it's very important for survivors to know what is okay for you to listen to and what is not. You have to make that decision for yourself, and you have to ultimately know, like, will this material of any type, whether you're reading something online, whether you're reading a book, whether you're listening to somebody talking about this, talking about abuse or these types of things, it is ultimately, you have to know yourself what you can listen to, what will bother you, and what will make you uncomfortable. Many people are uncomfortable hearing about this stuff, and my thing is I've had to live this my whole life, see? And I was much more uncomfortable being abused, than I am talking about it right now. You know what I mean? Trying to work through it. Like that's the issue. See, and that's why for me it's not a big deal to talk about this stuff, but it was a serious issue to be abused, right? And so a lot of people, they may find this type of material very disturbing, right? And in truth, in reality, if I sugarcoat it and I put some sort of a box around it that looks real pretty and speak, flowery words about it, then we're not getting to the truth of what the real abuse was. I mean, I was raped, and sodomized by my brother at the age of 8 years old. I can't say that any other way and make an honest statement, a truthful statement. I mean, I was doing that, right? Just to sugarcoat it, just saying, I was molested, I was sexually abused, right? That's a pretty little word we can use, sexually abused. That's not. It's rape, is what it is. Rape and sodomy, and and the issue is if we're going to be honest, then we need to tell it like it is. That's why I don't just say, I was abused, Abuse, what's abuse? No, I was beaten by my mother and my dad, like beaten horrifically. I mean, my mother rearranged my face on numerous occasions. I thought, oh my God, I'd never look the same again. Well, I didn't. Changed the look of my face. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, my God, I used to be cute. I used to be somewhat cute. Now you take. I really think, oh my God, look what she did to my face, and and then just how I see myself. The damage done from being raped and sodomized, beaten my whole life until I was about 17 by my mother, my violent, vicious, evil mother. What are you gonna do? And then my dad throwing his little beats in there too when he could when he thought it was a great idea. A bunch of jerks. And I'm like, and so I gotta spell it out like it is. Right? I can't sit there and say, I was abused, and make it all cute and pretty so people will listen to it. Because then what we're doing is we're just being as emotionally dishonest and as dishonest as a society who wants to believe that abuse doesn't happen. It's like, well, what is abuse? It's a lovely little word that we use to cover up the reality of what people do to their children. My mother burned me, for God's sakes, and then beat the shit out of me. Right? It was a good reason. Right? She burned me, and then she got pissed off because she burned me and because I was crying, and she was like, I'll teach you, and beat me. Not only did she burn me, but then she beat the shit out of me in the living room. That's real sweet. That's abuse. Right? She used to call me names, spit in my face. Call me horrible names. Whore and a slut and a cunt, screaming in my face. Throwing me out of the house, telling me she hated me. She wished I was dead. Right? That's abuse. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it is. It's not some pretty little package. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I she bloodied my nose. She used to give me like black eyes. She would beat my face. You know what I mean? And then slam me into things. Slam me onto the floor. Like, this woman hurt me. Like, I mean, I sit around today. I have a lot of back pain and stuff, and I have a lot of back pain all the time. And I'm sitting there today just thinking that those stupid people and what they did to me. I've been suffering physically my whole life because of this shit. And my hip is both of my hips actually are screwed, but one is more screwed than the other. And I was sitting there thinking, those stupid buggers. That was from my dad and my stupid brother. And so what am I supposed to do? That's the reality that I live. You know what I mean? I got a messed up front set of teeth because from being punched in the face. You know what I mean? Like, my mother was continually backhanding me on that side of my face, and I mean hard. She would punch me in the face. So I've got all of this problems at the front of my teeth, and what? I'm supposed to sit there and just be happy about this? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, come on, this is abuse, and that's why I'm not putting no sugar-coated, beautiful wrapping paper on it and say, oh, I was sexually abused as a child, and yeah, I was abused. I mean, it's like, no, I'm done with that. You know what I mean? Like, no, there's nothing pretty about abuse. And there's nothing pretty about the emotional illness and the emotional dysfunction that this society really, really is suffering from, the disease, which that's why I like what Robert Burney has to say, because he's really being honest here. And see, most people don't want to be honest. They don't want to be honest about what happens to children. They don't want to be honest about what happened to them. They don't want to be honest about what's wrong with this society, because that means then we have to do something about it. The minute we start looking at, well, what is it really, then that means then ultimately we have to do something about it if we really know what it is, right? And so I really like what he has to say. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I have people telling me a certain I have had in the past, a few people tell me that my stuff is, maybe not necessarily doing anybody any favors. You know what I mean? And I'm like, you know what? I really don't care. I'm telling it like it is, because abuse is not pretty. You know what I mean? My mother made me sleep in my own throw up, for God's sakes, and didn't care if I died. I mean, I was really sick. I couldn't even get up to change my own sheets. Like I was 12 years old. Like, what am I supposed to do? I couldn't even get up. I was so dizzy and so ill, and was so sick, and had thrown up in the middle of the night, and was choking on my own throw up. I mean, I could have died, for God's sakes. And the thing is like, I was so dizzy and ill, I couldn't get up to change my bed. So I was thinking, oh my God, she's going to beat the shit out of me, and I'm sick, and I can't even get up. I can't even defend myself. You know what I mean? And my mother came in and cursed at me. Oh, thank God she didn't beat on me. But the thing is she just went back to bed and left me like that, just laying in my own throw up. I mean, how can you do that to a kid? Like, how could you do that? Like, this is the reality, right? And so this is why, I mean, for me to be emotionally honest and to be emotionally honest with myself, just like Robert Burney says, I have to tell it like it is. And so, that's why I always give a discretionary warning on my shows, because it's like, what? If people don't want to hear the truth, then they don't want to be tuning into my shows. And ultimately, that's exactly what it is about. And so Robert Burney's basically saying the same thing there. If people don't want to know the truth about the issues that he's talking about, then, then there's no sense in them reading his stuff, because he's just being honest, right? And there may be somebody out there who's just not willing to be that emotionally honest or that honest. And that's all there is to it, right? And it's sad and pathetic. And the only way we're going to ever change the issues of abuse and dysfunction to help children, to help save children's lives right now, is to become completely honest as a society, right? But it's sad. It's going to take a long time. All these people that are so emotionally screwed up in the head that are running this country are going to have to basically die off, right? And then there'll have to be a whole other group come in and take these positions that are completely honest and are going to do something about this and make the right choices, right? So it's unfortunate that there's so many sick people on this planet, but it's just the truth, and it's been the way it's been the whole time. And it will always be that way, because there will always be somebody who will not do the right thing, and who will not, help people, or who will not whatever, you know what I mean, who just want to live in denial and live in or hurt children or whatever. So I really like what Robert Burney says here. He says the people who thought it was too intimate were making a statement about themselves and their own level of emotional intimacy, that they really, their fears of emotional intimacy, right? That's why people don't want to see those child abuse pictures. It's because they themselves can't handle it. Then don't look. Then don't look. See, nobody wanted to see me. There was people that didn't want to see me, all bloodied and fat lip and bruised and black eye. Nobody wanted to see that. So what they do is they just ignored it and allowed me to continue to be abused by my mother and my dad, right? My mother knew I was being raped and sodomized by my brother. She knew this, and she didn't want to do anything about it, so she ignored it. This is what people would do, because they don't want to deal with it. Well, that's fine. Then don't deal with it. You know what I mean? But there's a whole lot of us out here who are willing to deal with it and say that this is incredibly wrong and we don't care. You know what I mean? Like, this is garbage. So, yeah, I really like what Robert Burney has to say here. But we just barely touched on this article, and this is really all about the inner child healing work. So he's going to go down and talk about that. So we'll look at that on Monday. You can look at that now. www.joy2mbeu, that's joy, Joy, the number 2, mbeu.com /recovery_process. .html. That's where I'm reading from. And we just started this article, and it goes on and on and on. It's a huge, huge web page. So hope everybody will go take a look at it. Inner child healing and strength and hope and whatnot from Robert Burney. So thanks everybody for being here. I appreciate it. I'll be back on tonight on Dream Catchers Talk Radio, as well as my own show here tonight after that. And I hope you have a good day. If you need something, get a hold of me. If you need some information I might have, and if you can leave a message here on Blog Talk Radio or whatnot. And just know, don't give up, right? Not ever. It's not an option. We have to look for those better days, but they won't happen if we don't stick around. You know what I mean? Like, healing won't come if we're not looking for it. Help won't come if we're not looking for it. We basically have to be the ones to reach out. And that's what I realized 4 years ago. It was going to have to be me. I was like, whoa, I thought somebody else was going to do this for me. But actually, 4 years ago, I realized that, man, it was going to have to be me, and nobody was going to do it for me. And nobody could, because they had no idea where I'd been, and what had really happened to me, and except for a few of my dysfunctional family members who are still in denial and always will be. So I thought, man, no, I need help, and so I started to reach out, and I'm so glad I made the right choice. I just wish that for everybody. I really do. If you have to, you call a crisis line, but you do whatever you have to do. You stick around, because this is not at all right what happened to us, and we do not deserve to have a wasted, destroyed life because somebody decided to put us on the wrong path. Right? That's completely wrong. We have to take our path back. We have to take a hold of our path and say, you know what? I'm changing paths. I'm changing that life script. I'm writing myself a new path, and I'm writing myself a new life script, and it doesn't include those those stupid abusers, those people who hurt us. This is going to be my life, and I'm going to co-script it, and it's going to be great. You know what I mean? And so that I really wish that for everybody. I really do. Well, have a great day, everybody, and we'll talk to you tonight. Bye-bye.